Hey everybody. So last night on the BBC they were showing this documentary about this lady who travels down the Ganges, and yesterday's episode she was in Varanasi, the holy city. And I'm watching the programme and there was this 2-minute little bit where this Angori monk, which is what they're called, came up and was on camera, and they did this little segment on him. And what was absolutely brilliant is that when I was in Varanasi, I spoke to the same monk. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to take his handprints because whenever I saw him, he was always totally covered in cremation ash. However, I did get some really good photos of his hands, and that's what we're going to look at here. Let's go. Okay, so looking at the hand shape, we have an earth hand. This is a square palm with short fingers. Now, earth people tend to have the strongest constitutions, so this person is going to feel pretty strong. There's going to be a very high level of endurance when somebody's got an earth hand. He's going to like to feel stable, and he's going to like to be connected with the outdoors in some kind of way. Interestingly, if we look at the quality of the lines on his hand, he's got a lot of very fine scratchy lines that are quite etched into the palm. This is quite a fire element quality, and when you see this kind of fiery lines on an earth hand, it makes somebody incredibly action orientated. So this person's going to be very busy, they're going to need a lot of excitement, and they're going to need a lot of stimulation. If we look at the posture of his hand, we can see that he's holding his fingers and his thumbs very far and spread out, just very obviously in terms of the body language and expression. This is a very extroverted sign, and of course this is somebody who runs straight up to the camera and wants to get to know the Westerners and wants to be seen and talk to people. So we can definitely see this in the way in which he's displaying his body language with his hand. Continuing to look at the body language area of things, he's wearing rings on his third and fourth finger. When people wear rings on these two fingers here, it shows somebody who wants to connect more with the outside world. These two fingers relate very much to how somebody is seen and perceived in the external environment. So when somebody's got a ring on the third finger, it adds to their want to be creative, to be self-expressive. When somebody's got a ring on the little finger, in this situation, it's going to relate to communication and wanting to be heard, wanting to be seen a little bit more, and wanting to communicate in some kind of way with others. So wearing rings on these two fingers adds to his sense of self-expression and wanting to connect with the outside world. If we look at his thumb, we can see that the top flange is much bigger than the bottom one. Now this shows somebody with an impulsive nature, somebody that's going to want to think later and do first. And this is particularly relevant because of his fiery type lines. So this is going to be somebody who's going to be very impulsive, it's going to be very off the cuff, and it's going to add to his levels of excitement. Because of the big quality to the thumb as well, it's definitely going to add to his willpower and self-discipline. It's going to show a lot of determination within his character. And looking at his fingers, a very telling sign is his short middle finger. This is a really short middle finger here. The middle finger relates to somebody's sense of rules, structure. It's how one fits in with society. It's how much one is able to conform and how serious somebody can feel, but also how rebellious they are. And when the middle finger is short like this, it really shows a very strong alternative side to this person. They're not going to want to conform in any kind of way. They're going to want to be quite different and find that breaking the rules for them is much more liberating than it is just following. So obviously this person is a sadhu, he's a holy man, he hasn't got those connections and ties to society like normal people would have. But not only is he a holy man, he's an Agori Baba, and an Agori Baba is somebody who worships death in some kind of way. And he always covers himself in cremation ash. And some of these Agori Bubbas are even known to eat dead bodies. So this is the kind of sect that he's following. And having a very short middle finger like this is definitely expected when somebody is playing somebody who's so disconnected and so rebellious from society. Now, if we start to look at some of the lines of the hand, if we look at the upper transverse crease, this is the heart line or the emotion line, what we can see is it's of medium length and there's this additional floating part above it. This is quite common to see. Now, when we have a medium shorter heart line underneath a floating heart line at the top, what it shows is that somebody's outward personality and their means of expression is going to be different to what's actually going on emotionally. So this person is going to come across as if they were the upper floating heart line. This would be somebody who's very expressive, very open, very in touch, very romantic, very quick to show their emotions. However, underneath, the deeper heart line shows this is how the person really is. This is how they are when they're by themselves, and this is the deeper, more brooding side of them. Because the heart line is shorter underneath, what it shows is that he's going to need more of his own time and space than what his additional floating heart line shows. Half of him is going to want to be very open, very connected, and very in touch and expressive with everyone that's around him, as seen by the floating heart line. But the deeper, possibly truer side of his nature is actually a bit more isolated. He is more of a hermit. He's somebody who needs more of his own time and space, and he actually finds it harder to make a deeper, really meaningful connection to someone because the heart line is shorter. And when this is the case, it means that the emotional resonance is going to be a little bit rarer with people. Interestingly, if we actually look very closely at the second deeper heart line, we can see these feathery lines at the end of it. Now, what these feathery lines show are slightly different connections and versatilities that he has in relation to meeting people. These can be known as flirtation lines, and what it means is that he's going to make lots of different connections with lots of different people and feel comfortable hanging around many, many different types of people. But because the line is relatively short or medium length and quite low set, these deep, deep connections are going to be rare for him. And there's only ever really going to be one or two people in his life that he's going to feel really connected and strongly close with, and he feels understands him. Okay, so moving down the hand, we have the headline. The headline shows the way somebody thinks, and it shows the way they process thoughts. It shows the way their mind works. If we presume he's right-handed, as most people are, if we look at his right hand headline, it's quite long and it's quite straight, so it shows a logical, deep thinker. Now, if we look at his left hand, the headline is very different. It's dipping much more down into the palm. So the other one was straight, and this one's now curving right down into the bottom of the hand. When the line is curving like this, particularly on the inner hand, the left hand, it shows that somebody's going to delve very deeply into themselves. They're going to be a deep thinker who spends time analysing their own psyche, their own subconscious. They're going to brew on things. They're going to dwell very comfortably in the world of their dreams, their imagination. And they're going to spend a lot of time going inward. So of course, this man's a spiritual devotee. This is a headline that would be very typical to find on somebody like this, because you can imagine the amount of time he's going to spend in meditation, in prayer, and in solitude. And very often when somebody's got a very dipping headline like this, they prefer time by themselves, and they really need a lot of time by themselves because they don't connect in the same way to everybody else in the world and see things in the same logical, plane of view, they see things subjectively. They spend time within themselves, and they really like to delve in and get to know and understand the deeper sides of their nature. Okay, and I want to finish by looking at his lifeline. So if we continue looking at this hand here, we can see that the lifeline is quite short, and what happens is it then gets supplemented and taken over by the fate line. So if we look at this as a whole, what we can see is somebody who hasn't got a very strong sense of being grounded and a very strong sense of root. However, their fate line is giving them a sense of stability. The fate line, which runs up the center of the hand, and with this person here, is supplementing the missing lifeline. It shows that this person's way of life, their job, their lifestyle, their external circumstances is giving them their support. Because the lifeline is short, it means that he doesn't have a very good self-support system. He's going to be very mobile. He can move around all over the place. He can change his job if he wanted to. He's not going to have anything that's really internally keeping him rooted. But because the fate line is taking over and turned into the lifeline, if you will, it means that something external, i.e. his job or his lifestyle, is now supporting him and turning in to his lifeline. So what we can tell from this sadhu is that his way of life, his devotion, his path and spirituality is giving him his root. It's giving him his support. So the fate line, which shows your direction and your purpose, for him, his purpose is giving him the things that are missing from the lack of root on the lifeline. It shows that his purpose and his drive have become his sense of rock, his stability, and his anchor. And this is balancing the short lifeline. So just from looking at the photos, we can see so much about this man from his hands. We've looked at the fingers, the shape of the hand, the quality of the overall lines, and some specifics within the lines themselves. I'm going to let the BBC continue by showing you a few more clips of him, and stay tuned for the next video. Thanks everyone.